Be here any minute now, but I guess I'll start because I just have to do assignment for request for council action. So the finance committee meeting is called to order. The first item we have is assignment for request for council action. We have several for the finance committee. 23-215 management agreement operation lease settlement agreement for the airport. 23-216 budget amendments. 23-217 rollover of outstanding advances. 23-218 rollover of outstanding advances for the TIF fund, 23-219 fund transfer request, 23-220 fund advance request, 23-221 MOU with the county EMA Progress Drive Water Tower for the police, 23-222 MOU for the Medina County Public Transit, 23-223 grant application, building demolition, Ohio Department of Development, 23-224, purchase of 2023 Ford Explorers for the police. 23-225, job creation grant payment, Carlisle Brake and Friction. 23-226, increased PO 23-1266, design to wellness, MCRC. 23-227, agreement with Cleveland Clinic Health and Fitness, MCRC. 23-228, work out room upgrade. 23-229, expenditure for Koppenberg Enterprises Cemetery. 23-230, increased PO 23-1671, HSH Construction, Granger Road, emergency repairs. Next item we have is final budget review and approval of the 2024 and the 5-year budget. Keith, do you just want to give an overview, then we can add some stuff to it?
So this is obviously the budget process that we started way back in the spring. This is the whole thing. I sent it out a few weeks ago. I didn't see anybody email back that they had any corrections or disagreements, so I think we're set. And the total budget, President Cohen was asking about earlier, it's $59 million, but it is important to point out that payroll is double counted in there because we have a payroll account, so we don't actually spend $59 million. You back that out, and there are a few other things that pass through. So our total actual spend is closer to about 40.
Right, so we're about $40 million budget from year to year for 2024 going forward. And explain the healthcare, because this is the big change that we made for the healthcare with the percentages, and then going forward what the percentages are.
So the budgets, when we were working on them, we have kind of a placeholder number for healthcare because we have to have something. We don't know what it's actually going to be. And I get that from our healthcare provider and so on. And our estimate was a significant increase this year, which we ended up with not. So we also had a significant increase budgeted for 2025, which we ended up with no increase for 2025. So now we have these budgets are substantially lower than what at least everywhere that there's healthcare, which is anywhere there's a full-time employee. These budgets are significantly lower than you saw when we were actually going through the budget process because we've reduced them for that amount. We're budgeting a rather large increase then in 2026 because we don't know what it's going to be. And I would also point out that 25 is a little bit higher than 24, which is simply because, and we always talk about this, but the 12 months that we actually pay for in a calendar year are the 11 months of that calendar year, but then January of the following year. So we have to have a little bit of extra money in the 25 because we don't know what the 26 rate will be. We do know what the 25 rate will be, so we're fine with the 12 months at that for 2024.
Right, Mayor?
Unless you want to have discussion with council. First, I just have a couple comments on the budget, if I could.
No, go ahead.
So I know the goal of council when we did these 5-year plans was to try to keep the numbers locked in. And I have 2 examples for you of how that's not working so well. The first is with the police department. They're both safety forces related. So the first is the police department. We came through council with a 2-year grant for the flock camera system. If you don't recall, the flock camera system reads license plates of cars coming into the community. If the car is stolen, if the owner is wanted, it helps us keep the community safer. That cost after the grant is now $25,000 a year. That was not in any of the 5-year budgets. The vehicles are another example for the police department. Every year we we budget 30,000 per vehicle, and the cost today is closer to 42,000 a vehicle. So those adjustments aren't made and likely need to be made. On the revenue side, since the police department started applying to MCDAC, we've received about 800,000 since 2020, paying for our 3 school resource officers. In addition to that, Lafayette Township has paid us over 1.5 million into the 106 account, and we had a one-time deposit of COVID money into the 106 as a result of some of the federal COVID money coming down. Let me go to fire first, and then I'll circle back around. So the fire department, prior to Chief Walters being chief, we negotiated to take over Medina Township services in July of 2017, and the original annual revenue was $230,000. But what we're seeing, because along with that program, is we assumed 6 vehicles of theirs, 5 being fire engines and 1 a fire vehicle, not a fire engine. So what we're doing for the last 3 years, we're budgeting $75,000 in 2021, 75 in 2022, and 78,000 in 2023, because the maintenance of equipment line never went up to incorporate those new vehicles. Our expense actually is just under 100,000 in 2021, 122,500 in 2022, and this year it's projected to be 136,000. The revenue went from 230 in 2017 to in excess of 286,000 in 2021, 330, almost 336,000 2022, and almost 345,000 this year. So I bring that to your attention because we need to do one of 2 things, and these are just 2 examples. There may be some other in service or some of the other departments. Either we need to, early next year, make an additional appropriation to amend the budget, or both chiefs that I've talked to are willing to wait till next budget time when we go through the budgets next year. But some of these unappropriated monies where we're bringing in more and more revenue but not appropriating it, any of it, and saying the carry forward will cover it, in my opinion, that was never what the carry forward was created for. Patrick Patton is a good example, and he's not here tonight, but he's paying for a part-time employee that he agreed to use any carry forward as long as he could fund that part-time employee. But these are things that are ongoing and necessary for the day-to-day operations of these 2 departments and maybe more. And I just like you all to think about that. We can do it either way. We can file for a new appropriation early in the year. We can wait for the budgets. I'm happy either way. And both chiefs have been very gracious in covering this with carry forward all along, but it's not sustainable to continue to do so.
Yes, I think that's correct, Mayor. The sustainability over the long haul in using the carry forward in certain situations, it's understandable, but over the 5 years, it'll probably have to be modified. Both budgets are pretty healthy, as we know, which there's not an immediate issue with either one. The balances in both the budgets are pretty substantial, but the mayor is correct. Over the long term, recognizing the actual expenses that occur in these accounts should be reflected in the budgetary numbers. Now, of course, we always budget towards ordinances, and sometimes specific in the police department, the ordinances sometimes over the years hasn't been able to be adhered to just because of testing of officers and whatnot. So there's money that is generated that is not being used that goes into carry forward through no effort of either or fault of the chief or anybody, just the way the economy is. I mean, sometimes it's difficult to find a qualified officer to serve in those positions. So this, there's a vacancy in the position for a period of time. So we could look at that, and probably the best thing is going through the budget to make sure that we capture all that. We did go through, and I think these budgets are reflective to a certain extent. There's been changes to some of them based upon the increases in COLA because of inflation and the numbers that we've had to change throughout the entire city based upon the number of employees we have. We made those changes and reflected those in the budget. That made some modifications to all the different department heads had those modifications made to them. And then, of course, if you remember, we went through the process of looking at the income tax, because the good thing is our income tax is up, right? We have about total of 20 million, as Keith mentioned before, total of about 15 million or so that we have the ability to allocate, or that is allocated amongst the various items of the income tax allocation. And we made a modification of that to make it more reflective of the different departments and the needs that are going to have to occur in the future that we see coming up with computers and AI and trying to figure out how we're going to handle those issues. So overall, I think, the budget that we have in front of us today with the information that we have going forward, we're still in pretty good shape as a city. I think our biggest goal is to know if and when do we have to have a look at the income tax rate, because we have one of the lowest income taxes in the state, and we're still surviving on that quite well, which I think the residents should be happy about. I mean, I think from a city perspective, we're pretty fiscally conservative overall, and I think everybody agrees to that. Maybe some more than others, but no. We try to make sure that we spend the money wisely and make sure that, things that we need are done and things that we have to provide to the residents are taken care of, and I think we do a pretty good job at that. I know sometimes the department heads don't think we're a little too aggressive on that. I would be disagreeing, but maybe some of them would probably agree, but I don't know. But that's just me. But I think overall, it's a pretty good budget, pretty good income tax, the great job through economic development. We're bringing in more tax dollars. I mean, things are going okay, right? I think we're doing a pretty good job overall.
It's what we aim for. Pretty good.
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty good. Yes, that's what we want. Anybody have any questions or comments on that?
Well, I do think the mayor asked us the question, do we want to address this sooner or wait till the budget process, the things that he brought up here?
My personal opinion is wait to the budget process, because then we could look at holistically of the whole budget, because right now, the need, there's not a cash strap need, right? So, but he's correct, those numbers need to be modified. They're modified somewhat in the budgets that they're looking at them, but they're not modified to the, 30,000 a car, 35,000 a car, it's really 42, and who knows, it might be 45, 48 coming up, because cars aren't getting cheaper. But we know that we're on a cycle of 3 cars a year. We normally do that every year, try to, go through get 3 new vehicles a year, just so we keep up a current fleet. And we know that through the service department, how much a new plow truck costs. I mean, that's amazing. I think it was like 285,000 a few years ago. Now it's almost 400,000 for a plow truck. It's kind of, those are things, luckily we can plan for that and we have enough money to cover it. But I think through the budget process may be the easiest, so we can do all the departments. Because again, service department, the street department, we gotta look at that because more savings has to occur because vehicles are just getting really expensive.
I agree.
Any questions on that? Good? Is that okay? Good? All right, is there any other comments on the budget for 2024 or going forward, the 5-year budget? Anybody have any questions or concerns on that?
Move to approve?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The next item we have on the agenda is going back to 23-202, waiving certain uncollectible utility accounts. If you recall, this is the one we passed through finance before. There were some issues with, I think it was a dumpster in the Parks and Recs Department in the schools with a water account or a dumpster. I can't remember what one it was. And then I just had a question on the certified accounts that we have already that we certified as delinquent that put a lien on people's property, keeping those on there until they're paid, because if there's a sale, they have to pay it. They pay it to the county, I believe. But we maybe do money from the county, because some of those may have been sold and paid for. But I think that was a question, and Mr. Huber also had a question. I think talking to Mr. Huber, do you still have a concern, Greg, or do you have any question on that?
No, I don't.
Okay, so I guess the question on council is, do we want to, my opinion would be, there's certain bankruptcies, foreclosures and things, we're never going to collect money on those. Those should be waived, but the certification, I think, once we certify something as a lien on the property, I think we should keep it on there. and it stays on there until it's paid. I don't think we should take those off, because they were valid when we did them. Now, some of those are pretty old, from 2004, I think it was, 2008, 13, there's some old ones, but Keith had a concern that he might want to try to separate those out and put them in a separate account.
We'll leave them on the system, that's fine. As long as you're waiving the bankruptcy and sheriff sales that we absolutely know we can't collect, we can at
Right.
least clean those out.
Does everybody agree with that, kind of moving forward? And is all the other issues with is your issue solved?
I don't think so. I guess maybe that's, Keith, what got me, when I see bankruptcy or sheriff sale, it's hard for me to see bankruptcy, sheriff sale when the Board of Education's on there, when the City of Medina's on there, because neither one of those apply to yeah, so, I mean, I do think if we can, I just want to make sure that we get those easy ones, those should be the easy ones to get cleaned up, as opposed to putting them on a list here.
So those are gonna get cleaned up and taken off the list. The parks will take it off the list, and the schools will take it off the list, and the certified liens for those previous years will stay on the list. I mean, take off the list too, but stay on the roll to be collectible through the city. Is that what?
Sure.
Yeah.
So Keith, I guess it really is, or do you want to submit a new list? What's easiest for you at this point?
I wrote down here, only waive bankruptcies and sheriff sales. That's what I wrote down, and we'll get that to you.
Okay.
Okay, is everybody agreeable to that? So what we'll do is we'll pass it out of finance with that, and then at the council meeting, we could put it on the council meeting, and it'll take effect 30 days, so it'll be done before the end of the year.
So do we need a new motion for just the bankruptcy and sheriff sale?
Yes.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thanks, Keith. 23-215 is the management agreement and the fixed base operation lease and settlement agreement with the City of Medina Airport. I think Mr. Huber wants to talk about it, and I think we have Ron Waldron here who wants to talk about the airport a little bit, but I'll give it to Mr. Huber first to give us an update on all the different agreements that have taken place.
We've been in the process of transferring management at the airport from Earl Olson to Ron Waldron, who is seated here. I've asked him to address the council briefly when I get done. Ron has worked with Earl, and the transfer has been extremely good. The baton's getting passed along in such a way that it's sensible. Flight instruction continues as it has been. Ron's recently purchased a couple of new airplanes for flight instruction. We're supposed to have a fixed base operating lease with this packet. It's not in the packet. I gave it to Tressie. I don't know why it's not in the packet. And there's also supposed to be a settlement agreement with Earl Olson. That's not in this packet. The only thing you have is the management agreement today, and I didn't pick this up till this afternoon because I haven't had enough time to look through this.
Well, we
Is that
received
in
the other ones.
extra
They have
email?
everything.
Yeah.
Do they have
Yeah, I
it?
just didn't want to, since you already know, I didn't give it to just you.
Oh, okay. So it's lengthy, but we've reached an agreement with Earl to resolve the financial situation between the city and Flight Services of Medina. And once council approves that, it'll be a settled matter. And you have before you then the management agreement and the fixed base operation agreement. I think I'm going to set up a meeting with our attorney who drafted this, Brian Moore, and Ron later this week, because there's a few changes in the financial agreements that we're arriving at that I want to make. So if you pass this, it would be subject to my approval, because I think we might be changing this in the next couple of weeks. The mayor and I attended an open house Saturday. I know the pilots at Medina are anxious for a new manager. I think we have a good choice, and I'll let Ron address the council at this point.
Hello, first I just want to welcome you to the airport, anybody that wants to learn and come take a look. Oh, that's not.
Well, Jared's working on it.
Well, can you hear me?
Oh, now, yeah.
Oh, you got me now? All right, so I want to welcome you to the airport. Come to the airport. check out what we've done so far. The open house was amazing. I would say 150 people came through. We had planes on static display, face painting for kids, and they got to, look at the different aircraft. Just a little bit of my background. I've been in aviation since 1984, flying since '84. Fixed wing, instrument rated, float plane rated, helicopter rated, commercial rated. And I'm about to almost open up a Cleveland air taxi at Medina. So that's been 2 years in the making with the FAA, and we'll be running that out of your airport. And I'm excited for Medina, and I just want to thank the mayor and Greg for asking me to take on this challenge and the opportunity that it gives me, and aviation has always been my passion, and youth in aviation has always been my passion. There's 2 little kids I gave their first ride to. They're fighter pilots now, and many, many smaller, kids all through time. Some of them are commercial pilots, and that is my passion, to bring on youth. Aviation is growing and changing. I don't want to see Medina fall behind. Cuyahoga County just signed with a really large jet firm, business jet firm. They're going to be building beautiful FBO there. And, Cleveland has just signed with Frontier. And Columbus is opening a factory for a one-man vertical takeoff, fly-away land. They got 200 orders. Europe is certifying that type of aircraft. Soon the United States will be doing the same thing, and who will be flying them as pilots at first. So we need to teach and bring more kids into this industry. We need more pilots today, and that is my passion, to bring that forward. We're going to have many events. I have such a great team of people that have been at Medina. I've had so many people on this open house come to me and just offer their expertise and abilities. Just very excited to bring this on. My business background is, I've been in business for myself since 1984, and in 1990 I started Stay Right Drywall Company. We are now one of the largest commercial residential drywall companies in the Cleveland area. We run 80 to 100 men and women, and very successful. And now this opportunity has just been a dream to, be part of aviation in a business format. And I just thank Medina for that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, this process has been going on, as all members of council know, for many years. And as far as with Mr. Olson running the airport probably since 1998 or so, I think it was. And now we're switching to another operator. I think all the agreements have been modified with amendments to the various lease agreements with the various parties at the airport. So this is a comprehensive overhaul of what exists there today, and under new leadership. So we're hopeful that, things are going to move forward in a great way. And now that we have additional property at the airport, with expanding the runway with a possibility that, we can draw more users to the airport. I think that's the ultimate goal, is what we want to say. Mr. Huber?
Just wanted to publicly thank Attorney Brian Moore, who has helped with the contract language. Brian is a business and contracts lawyer in Akron. He handles a lot of the contracts for Akron-Canton Airport. He's familiar with airport agreements in particular, and he's been great help in working through the issues that we've had at hand in this situation. And I'd like to make sure that the council's aware of the assistance we've got in working this out.
Thanks. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we have to have a motion to approve the agreements,
Make it-
subject to the changes that they're going to do.
all right, I'll make a motion to approve the operations lease, the settlement agreement, and the management agreement, subject to final approval of the law director.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, 23-216, we have budget amendments. We have 2023-48.
This one is not new appropriations, these are transfers, this is just as we're getting towards the end of the year, getting things squared away.
Okay,
Move to approve?
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2023-53. This one is, who's this one?
It's a pass-through of a donation for the police department.
Okay,
Move to approve?
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2023-54.
This one's a much bigger one, obviously. This is, again, end-of-year stuff, but this is not transfers. These are unappropriated funds. There's some in grants, a number of different departments. If you have individual questions, I don't think you want me to read through all these, so.
Move to approve?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2023-55. This is Chief Walters.
It's another pass-through of a donation, so.
Okay,
Move to approve?
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2023-57.
This one is rec center, and, well, it's Jansen's request, but it's changes in rec center.
Yeah, it's moving some staffing money to other budgets, particularly the indoor pool to the outdoor pool for the increased staffing. We had a negative, and then our Rascal room to programming for our camps.
Okay,
Move to approve?
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 23-217, a rollover outstanding advances. Keith?
These are advances, as I mentioned, usually when council passes these, so people understand, an advance is a borrowing money from one city fund to another city fund, typically for a grant. There are a few other instances we use them, so we do the project, and then once we get the grant money, we repay the advance. Sometimes we haven't gotten it yet. And the reason that, for the timing of this, we do them towards the end of the year, so that if we can get them done before the year end, then we don't have to. But we don't want to wait any longer, because then we get into December, and we'd have to have you come back at Christmas.
Move to approve?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 23-218, a rollover of outstanding advances for the TIF fund.
This one we just broke out from the others because it's pretty big and it's its own thing. This is the TIF. It's not actually an advance. For those who don't understand the TIF, and I know everybody on council does, but the city did this project. It's called, the TIF stands for Tax Increment Financing District. So we're going to get the money back from the incrementally increased taxes that we're able to collect. I think we already passed that, didn't we? We're on the TIF, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry. So we haven't paid much back this year. You can see the numbers are pretty close. That's because most of the property hasn't been developed yet. As more property is developed, we will get more per year, and this will get paid down and eventually go away.
Any questions?
Move to approve?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 23-219, transfer request.
We do an advance for the special assessments, but some of those end up not being collectible, and eventually we just have to concede that we're never going to collect it and make it a transfer.
Move to approve?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 23-220, advance request.
These are not rollovers, but new advances, and so it's for the various things you see here.
Questions?
Move to approve?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 23-221, an MOU with the county EMA Progress Drive Water Tower for the police. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Medina County Emergency Management Agency Communications Unit is a volunteer group of amateur radio operators committed to providing effective and efficient communications services to support the Medina County EMA and emergency response efforts throughout Medina County and the region. The unit would like to install a amateur radio repeater and antenna on the Progress Drive water tower. The repeater will allow communication redundancy in the event of a major disaster or emergency need for communications in Medina County. We currently have some assets on that tower. None of them are primary assets, but they're still live if we do need them. So this would just complement our communications plan here in the city of Medina as well as the county.
And did Mr. Huber look at the MOU, or does he have to?
Yes, he has and approved it.
Okay. Any questions?
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 23-222 MOU for the county public transport. Mr. Dutton?
Yes, this is an MOU to enter into an MOU with Medina County Public Transit for transit services in the city for 2024 and 2025. This is a similar setup as we've had in previous years, with the majority of the funds coming from our CDBG grant. So it's $90,000 over the 2 years. $75,000 will come out of the CDBG and $15,000 from the general fund. You have the MOU in the packet, as well as the slideshow that the Director Shannon Ryan presented a couple months ago for their new microtransit MC Flex service, which they've done in Wadsworth, and have started in Medina with similar positive results. Thank you.
Thank you. And does Mr. Huber have to look at this agreement?
Yes.
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 23-223, grant application for the Ohio Department of Development building demolition. Mrs. Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. President. This request is to authorize the mayor to apply for an Ohio Department of Development building demolition site revitalization grant to demo the Tots House and accessory structures located at the Medina Municipal Airport and execute any and all paperwork pertaining to the grant. If approved, the city will need to enter into a subrecipient grant agreement with the Medina County Port Authority, as the Medina County Commissioners have appointed the Port Authority as the lead entity for program funding, as they did in the last round. Grant applications are due November 20th. The budget estimate for the project is $40,000. However, we are still working on getting the necessary quotes for the project. The state recently released the second round of funding for the program. However, there are still some remaining funds from the first round of funding, so we respectfully are requesting to submit the grant application with the flexibility to apply for both rounds to give us the best chance of the grant award. We're also making the request subject to the law director's approval because of that subrecipient grant agreement. And we're requesting the emergency clause because the applications are due to the Port Authority on November 20th.
Thank you. Any questions?
Make a motion to approve with the emergency clause and subject to final approval of the law director.
Second, including the emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 23-224, purchase of 3 2023 Ford Explorers for the police department. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the yearly 3 vehicles that we purchase that are budgeted for. They're the 3 Ford Explorers and the upfit for those cars. They are state bid. These are 2023s because you can't get 2024s next year. It's impossible for us to do it. Ford just isn't, they're not making them for new orders. They've said the folks who ordered the 2023s and weren't able to get them are the only ones that are going to be allowed to get the 2024s. So if we want new vehicles in 2024, we have to buy 2023s, if that makes any sense to you. But a new car is a new car.
Maybe we'll get 2025s. I don't
Maybe
think-
at the end of 2024, but we need the cars now,
I
so,
know. So when's the delivery date?
Minor
Did they give you that?
no.
Oh, so we have no idea.
Actually, it'll be soon because the Montrose, who we buy the vehicles through, they'll have them
Oh, okay.
fairly quickly. So that was part of the benefit of this, is that we were able to get the vehicles fairly quickly. If we were going to wait for 2025s, it'd be another year probably before we'd be able to get vehicles.
Well, hopefully everything will be back to normal at some point, but it doesn't appear like it's there yet.
Someday.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 23-225, job creation grant payment for Carlisle Brake and Friction. Ms. Marshall?
Thank you, Mr. President. This request is to authorize a job creation grant payment to Carlisle Brake and Friction, also known as Friction Products, for tax year 2022 in the amount of $53,491.89. This is for 2 job creation grants. The first one being JCG 13 for a project that they did in 2017 in the amount of $18,750.06. And then the second grant is JCG 21 for a project that they did in 2020. And that grant amount is $34,741.83. These grants are a result of two expansion projects. The first one was for their warehouse, production, employee welfare areas, and machinery and equipment investments. If you'll recall, that was the project that we were in competition with Tulsa, Oklahoma, which we won that project. And then the second one was for their relocation of their Solon headquarters to Medina. That was actually during COVID, looking back at that, thinking about that now. But anyway, based on the grant commitments, the company should have 374 full-time employees there, currently at 403. They have exceeded both the employee goal and payroll goals accordingly. Information has been verified by Rita. And again, the company's doing well, but just like all the other companies out there, still having those challenges with supply chain and hiring, and they're continuing to work through those issues. So we're respectfully requesting council to authorize the job creation grant payment. And as a reminder to council and the public, funding for these grants comes from non-income tax generated revenues. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
That's all right. I just wanted to congratulate Mrs. Marshall on the work that she did here with Carlisle and all the other work, all the other help that we had throughout the state. But I just did a real quick calculation. The actual new payroll brought in approximately $186,000 in income tax revenue for the city. So it's another example of working together with the businesses and the administration and council to keep our city good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 23-226, increased POs for Design to Wellness. Jansen?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is to increase an existing purchase order that we have with the Design to Wellness to purchase a few more pieces of fitness equipment that will be installed in our new fitness room addition that should be completed here in the next couple weeks. These are wall-mounted cable machines that would be installed in there. Thank you.
Okay. Questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 23-227, Health and Fitness Agreement with Cleveland Clinic Fitness Center. Jansen?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the contract that we've had for a number of years with the Cleveland Clinic for their EHP program. The Cleveland Clinic offers eligible employees, their spouses and dependents, with certain wellness benefits, including access to fitness centers. We are essentially the fitness center for Cleveland Clinic Medina Hospital and any of those employees that live in or near Medina County that choose to go there. In order to participate in that program, they have to meet certain requirements that the clinic outlines. Basically, to sum it up, they have to come to our facility 10 times a month to maintain eligibility in their program. What we did, the only changes to this contract, we did clean up some of the unnecessary items that were essentially out of date, that were no longer being performed in the contract. We took out family memberships because it was very problematic for our staff to split memberships in the event that someone became ineligible in the middle of the year. Essentially, we're obligated to give the clinic credit for the remainder of the year, and we were essentially losing money because of that. So we worked with the clinic to get that contract to work in our favor, as well as clarify how we would handle those prorations and credits. We're grateful to have a good relationship with the clinic. We worked with their supply chain management department to make these revisions, and we're hopeful that we can get it through our process here and move on by the end of the year. Thank you.
Any questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 23-228, workout room upgrade. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President. So we had two of our detectives from the police department take a look at the workout room and redoing it. Some of you that have been around for a little while will know when we renovated the basement, we created that workout room. We put the detective bureau in the offices next door and then created the actual workout room. Some of the equipment that's there was there when I was hired with the city over 40 years ago. And some of the steel plates are rusting. Some of the dumbbells are actually curved. The larger ones, the handle is curved just from the use of it and the stress of them. It was impressive enough that when we brought Medical Mutual down to give them a tour of the room, they agreed to give us a $4,500 additional stipend in addition to the $3,000 for wellness-related issues next year. It's just a one-time grant. But besides that, the Van Epp Foundation has pledged $10,000 and the Cleveland Clinic President's Fund $1,000. So the total project is roughly $55,500. We're short about 40 now, but I was in a Thomas and Jill Lincoln Foundation meeting, and there was a letter asking if there would be interest in supporting this cause, and there was interest, but we didn't have the actual application, and I would have had to abstain, but the other board members were nervous with setting a precedent of doing it without the proper application. So we don't meet again until February. It was a recommendation of Don Mish, who handles all the foundations from the bank, Huntington Bank, that one application can then be taken to the Thomas and Joe Lincoln Foundation, the Ken Cleveland Foundation, and the Stevenson Foundation. I'm asking council, so we can get the project moving, to appropriate $20,000 from the Police 106 Fund and $20,000 from the General Purpose Capital, with the understanding then if each of these three foundations end up pitching in to get us back to the 40, we'll replenish that money, or if they give us, for argument's sake, 5 or 10,000 each, we'll divide that equally and put it back into the two foundations. But to support the wellness, and as well as to reward the employees, if you will, because of their participation in the wellness, our numbers are 78 to 79% participation, which is helping drive down our healthcare costs. So we're seeing a real savings from that, much higher savings than this 40,000 I'm asking for. To me, it just makes sense, and I think it will encourage maybe some others that aren't as eager to go down because of the appearance of the room today.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I get the split between the general purpose capital and police, since, police mainly use it, but the employees of the city are able to use it. Whether they take advantage of it or not, to the extent they should, I don't know, but that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
23-229, purchase of niches for the Koppenberg Enterprises, Inc. Who's handling this one? Dino's not here. Oh, Jansen?
Thank you, Mr. President. So this request came about, we have authorization to bid our columbarium wall 3 for Spring Grove Cemetery. We had a meeting with our architect to express some of the concerns we've had with, this is our third columbarium wall now. So we just reviewed all of the concerns that have kind of came up in the last two projects. And we decided it would be in our best interest to purchase the niche directly from the manufacturer and pull that out of the scope of the project. That was the number one problem last time around with the precast niches. We took delivery of them and they were off slightly from the shop drawings, which when you have 120 niche and they're all off a little bit, it adds several inches onto the end, which is problematic. So we think it's in our best interest to purchase directly from the manufacturer, to have these on site at our facility, and it will potentially open the project up to other contractors who might not have an interest in trying to source these materials because they'll be on site. So Koppenberg is the manufacturer that was recommended by our architect, and they gave us what we feel is a fair price for the precast niche, the marble, and all of the connectors to make that project happen.
Questions?
Mr. Jensen, how many, in each niche, how many people can you put in them?
You're allowed 2 cremains per niche.
Thank you.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And finally, 23-230, increase of PO of HSH Construction. Mayor?
Yeah, on behalf of Patrick, he and Kathy are at the hospital with their daughter, hopefully delivering a baby here. This is the emergency water line, an increase of $5,000 for a total of $35,000 for the Granger Road emergency water line improvements. If council recalls, when we first appropriated this was the 100-year-old water line going through the Rocky River that began to fail, and the residents or non-city residents on Granger Road, there was some advantage, rather than replacing that 100-year-old line, of putting them over to the county system, which then let the county create a loop coming across the front of our water plant. And this is just an additional $5,000 to get that project completed.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Is there anything else that anybody wishes to bring up for the Finance Committee? Hearing none, meeting adjourned, and we'll wait for council.